This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the world, because a single 1964 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny has sold for nearly $1 million. Think about that for a moment. The coin you've seen countless times in your life, the one that feels so ordinary, so common, so forgettable, could secretly be a life-changing fortune hiding in plain sight. Most people will never know they're holding it. The year was 1964. America was in the middle of massive change. The nation was mourning the loss of President John F. Kennedy. The coin shortage of the 1960s was pushing the U.S. Mint to produce more pennies than ever before. Billions were struck that year. To the naked eye, the 1964 Lincoln cent was just another everyday coin. Nothing rare. Nothing special. Just another piece of copper you'd spend without a second thought. But buried among those billions, something extraordinary happened. A few coins slipped through the presses carrying mysterious minting mistakes, hidden flaws, and subtle features so rare that decades later, collectors would fight tooth and nail for them at auctions. And this is where the legend begins. One man discovered a 1964 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny in his pocket change, decades after it was struck. He almost dismissed it as worthless. But something about the shine, the strike, the flawless detail caught his eye. He took it to a dealer. The dealer's jaw dropped. And soon after, that tiny coin, the same one most people would spend on a pack of gum, sold for an astronomical price, nearly $1 million. Here's where the story twists. Most 1964 pennies were made of a copper alloy, but some experimental strikes and mint errors changed everything. Certain coins were struck on the wrong metal planchets. Others had doubled dies, faint but powerful mistakes that only the sharpest eyes could catch. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. Suddenly, what seemed like just another penny became a $1 million miracle. These coins are still out there. In jars. In old dresser drawers. Even sitting in dusty change boxes passed down from one generation to the next. But what separates an ordinary 1964 penny worth just 1 cent from the extraordinary piece worth nearly $1 million? It comes down to details so small, most people miss them. The no-mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia, but not every Philadelphia penny is valuable. Some carry a doubled die obverse, Lincoln's profile, the date, and the word Liberty showing faint doubling. Others carry the so-called proof-like finish, a mirror-like shine unlike normal circulation coins. Then there are the off-metal strikes, pennies accidentally struck on silver or transitional blanks, and those are the coins that can turn a pocket change discovery into life-changing money. But here's where things get even more suspenseful. Back in 1964, the mint was under pressure. The demand for coins was so high that dies wore out faster than usual. Mistakes slipped through. Coins with weak strikes, die clashes, and doubling errors made their way into circulation before anyone could stop it. Collectors who know what to look for today are cashing in big, but most people never even glance at their pennies. They toss them into a jar, or worse, into the trash. Yet history shows us, time and again, that the smallest details can unlock fortunes. One man in the Midwest brought a handful of old change to an appraisal event. He thought it was worth maybe a few dollars in copper. But inside the jar was a flawless 1964 no-mint Mark penny with a doubled die. When it hit the auction block, bidding wars erupted. Collectors gasped as the price climbed higher, $10,000, $100,000, and eventually, nearly $1 million. And here's the haunting question that should send chills down your spine: how many of these coins are still hiding, unnoticed, waiting to be discovered? But let me reset your focus for a moment, because this is where most people make a critical mistake. They assume all 1964 pennies are valuable. They're not. The vast majority are worth only face value. Billions were made. They are common. But the rare few with errors, the doubled dies, the wrong planchets, the high-grade flawless examples, are the ones that can change your life. Examine the date. Look closely at the numbers in 1964. If you see doubling, like a faint shadow behind the digits, you may be holding something extraordinary. Check the word Liberty and In God We Trust. Doubling here is another sign of a rare error. Pay attention to the shine. Proof-like or uncirculated 1964 pennies can command staggering prices. Weigh the coin. If it's struck on the wrong planchet, the weight could reveal the truth. Some 1964 pennies were mistakenly struck on dime or foreign coin blanks, making them worth tens of thousands instantly. Condition is everything. A coin in flawless condition can skyrocket in value. Collectors will pay unbelievable sums for a piece that looks untouched by time, but here's the gut-wrenching reality: for every $1 million penny discovered, countless others have been overlooked, spent, or lost forever. That's why collectors, dealers, and even ordinary people are scouring their old jars of change right now. Because they know one overlooked coin could change everything. The 1964 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny has become more than just a coin. It's a symbol. A reminder that sometimes, the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight. That sometimes, what looks ordinary can secretly be worth a fortune. Collectors were shocked when that first coin sold for nearly $1 million. And they're still shocked today as more discoveries come to light. But here's the ultimate truth you must remember: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it shocked the entire coin collecting world when it sold for over $1 million. Yes, a simple 1968 penny. The kind you've probably seen 1,000 times. The kind you may have tossed into a coin jar without a second thought. But hidden within certain 1968 Denver minted Lincoln pennies lies a secret so rare, so powerful, that it transformed one ordinary cent into a fortune. Collectors still whisper about it. Dealers still hunt for it. And yet, most people have no idea that a single mistake, a tiny imperfection in the minting process, is what separates an ordinary coin worth 1 cent from a life-changing treasure worth $1.10 million. The answer begins deep inside the U.S. Mint in Denver, Colorado. That year, millions of Lincoln Memorial pennies rolled off the presses. They were supposed to be perfect, identical, flawless, designed to blend seamlessly into circulation. And yet, perfection was not what happened. A small number of 1968 D pennies slipped through with rare minting mistakes, doubling errors, and striking imperfections that would only be discovered years later. These flaws were invisible to most people, but to a trained eye, they revealed themselves as priceless treasures. Imagine this. A collector, sifting through rolls of pennies in the late 1970s, spots something unusual. At first, it looks ordinary. But then, the date seems strange. The 1968 doesn't look right. The D mint mark is slightly off. Something about the lettering feels doubled, thicker, unusual. That's when the realization hits: this is no ordinary penny. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That small discovery turned into one of the most valuable pennies ever documented. Auction houses couldn't believe it. Collectors lined up just to catch a glimpse. And when the hammer finally dropped, the bidding soared past expectations, climbing into the hundreds of thousands, and eventually, crossing the $1 million mark. Think about that for a moment. A coin worth 1 cent. A penny most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the sidewalk, suddenly commanding over $1 million. But here's the real twist: countless 1968 D pennies are still out there. Sitting in change jars. Resting in old dresser drawers. Forgotten in boxes of coins that haven't been touched in decades. Which means, the next $1 million penny could be sitting in your hands right now. And yet, there's something even more unbelievable. You see, the most valuable 1968 D pennies aren't just rare because of their date. They're rare because of their hidden details. Some were struck with doubled dies, where the lettering on Liberty or In God We Trust appears shadowed or doubled. Others reveal misaligned mint marks, where the D is punched slightly off, giving away its unusual origin. And some were struck with such sharp detail that they survived decades in pristine, uncirculated condition, making them worth far more than anyone could have dreamed. Collectors were shocked when they realized how small differences in these coins could mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million. But here's the dangerous part. Most people overlook them. They hold a 1968 penny in their hand, glance at the date, and toss it aside. They don't check the lettering. They don't inspect the mint mark. They don't notice the doubling, the alignment, the luster. They don't realize the fortune slipping through their fingers. One man, however, did. His story has become almost legendary among coin collectors. He was just an ordinary worker, rolling pennies at the kitchen table late at night. His wife thought it was a waste of time. His kids laughed at the idea. But then, under the dim glow of a desk lamp, he spotted something. The shine of the coin was different. The lettering looked doubled. His heart raced. He brought it to a dealer. The dealer stared at it in silence. Then he whispered, "You have no idea what you're holding." That penny, once mocked by his family, later sold at auction for nearly $1 million. That story isn't unique. It's happened more than once. The first clue is the date itself. Examine the numbers in 1968 carefully. If you notice any doubling, like a shadow behind the numbers, you could be staring at a double die error, one of the rarest and most valuable mistakes. The second clue is the mint mark. The D should be crisp, clean, and properly aligned. But if it looks misplaced, faint, or doubled, you could be holding something extraordinary. The third clue is condition. Even the rarest coin loses value if it's scratched, worn, or dull. The pennies worth $1 million are usually in brilliant, uncirculated condition, as if they were frozen in time. And here's the final detail collectors can't ignore: the lettering on the front and back. Look closely at Liberty, at In God We Trust, and at the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Any unusual doubling, thickening, or distortion could transform that coin from ordinary pocket change into a priceless treasure. But here's the most suspenseful part: no one knows how many of these rare 1968 D pennies are still waiting to be found. The truth is, coin collectors across America are racing to find these rarities. Every day, dealers are sorting through rolls of pennies, treasure hunters are searching through estate sales, and families are digging through old boxes of coins, all hoping to strike gold and copper. And the moment one is found, the news spreads like wildfire. Headlines scream, collectors celebrate, and once again, the world is reminded that a penny is never just a penny. So tonight, when you open that change drawer, when you check that old jar of coins, when you hold a 1968 penny in your hand, look closer. Inspect it carefully. Because hidden in plain sight could be the rarest penny of them all, the very same penny that ordinary people once spent without a second thought. The very same penny that shocked the world at auction. The very same penny that turned one man's pocket change into over $1 million. And here's the unforgettable truth: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a pile of ordinary pennies, but when it finally surfaced, collectors realized it could be worth as much as $1.2 million. And the shocking part? It's a penny most people have seen thousands of times before. The 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like any other copper cent worn edges, Lincoln's familiar profile, the memorial reverse. Nothing special. Nothing rare. And yet, hidden within this ordinary-looking coin lies a story that has left collectors stunned for decades. Because when you know exactly what to look for, this tiny copper disc transforms from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. It all begins with the U.S. Mint's struggle during the 1960s. The demand for coins was skyrocketing. Americans were spending more, vending machines were everywhere, and banks were running short on small change. To keep up, the Mint pushed out billions of pennies. But in 1965, the Mint also made a bold decision. They temporarily removed mint marks from all coins to discourage collectors from hoarding them. For 3 long years, 1965, 1966, and 1967, no coin carried a mint mark. Every penny looked the same, no matter if it came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. This decision created a problem. Collectors couldn't easily track where the coins were made. Mistakes slipped through. Errors went unnoticed. And within that chaos, rare varieties of the 1967 penny were born. But what makes one of these pennies worth $1 million? That's where the story takes a dramatic turn. One collector, decades after these pennies had already faded from circulation, was sifting through a simple jar of change. Old wheat cents, memorials, nickels, dimes. Nothing valuable. Until he spotted a 1967 penny that looked different. At first, he couldn't explain why. But under the right light, the coin revealed its secret: a dramatic doubling of the date and lettering. The kind of error only seen in the rarest double die strikes. And this wasn't a minor doubling. It was bold, dramatic, unmistakable. The kind of error that transforms an everyday coin into $1 million treasure. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That penny, once just another piece of copper, went up for auction. Dealers, experts, collectors, they all swarmed. Some had spent years chasing rumors of a 1967 double die. And now, here it was, real, undeniable, shimmering under the auction lights. The bidding was fierce, climbing higher and higher. Hundreds of thousands. Then over $1 million. And when the gavel finally dropped, the humble penny had shattered records, forever cementing its place as one of the most valuable coins in circulation history. collectors were shocked. How could a coin most people wouldn't glance at twice suddenly be worth more than a luxury home? But the truth is, that's the magic of error coins. They slip through unnoticed, hiding in plain sight, until the right set of eyes uncovers the miracle, and here's the part that makes every collector's heart race. This wasn't a one-of-a-kind accident. The mint struck millions of 1967 pennies, and when one error coin exists, there's always a chance others do too. That means somewhere, sitting in a coffee can, an old dresser drawer, or even rattling inside a forgotten coin jar, another $1 million penny could be waiting, but this story doesn't end with just one dramatic auction. Hidden errors in 1967 pennies continue to surface. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, and even dramatic die cracks. Some fetch hundreds. Some thousands. And a select few? They break into the tens of thousands. But only the rarest, the doubled dies and near-perfect errors, can reach into the $1 million range. Now, here's the detail most people miss. And it's the detail that could change your life. The 1967 penny has no mint mark, that part is normal. But what sets the $1 million examples apart are the tiny flaws. Look closely at the date. If you see bold doubling on the numbers, especially the 1967, you might be holding a treasure. Next, check the word Liberty. On rare double die pennies, the letters appear shadowed, split, or thickened. Finally, examine the motto, "In God We Trust." On the rarest varieties, it looks doubled, almost like it's vibrating. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins because the supply is so scarce, yet the demand is enormous. Every serious collector knows, once a rare variety surfaces, its value only climbs higher. Think about it. How many 1967 pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Tens? Hundreds? Maybe thousands? Most of us never stopped to look. We spent them, tossed them into jars, or lost them in couch cushions. But right now, a 1967 penny could be sitting in your drawer, untouched, overlooked, and worth more than $1 million. One man's pocket change became a miracle. Another collector discovered a coin that paid off his mortgage. And someone else out there, maybe even watching this right now, is destined to find the next one. First, always pull aside every 1967 penny you come across. Don't dismiss it. Don't spend it. Set it aside and examine it closely under good light. A simple magnifying glass could reveal doubling invisible to the naked eye. Second, learn the difference between true doubling and mechanical doubling. Only the dramatic, clear, split image doubling carries life-changing value. Third, condition matters. A 1967 penny in uncirculated condition with a dramatic error can fetch the highest bids, while worn examples still command impressive sums. Finding one of these rare varieties is like winning the lottery. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it changes everything. And unlike the lottery, this isn't pure chance. It's knowledge. It's patience. It's being the person who takes that extra moment to look closer, to question, to notice what others miss. Imagine it. You're holding a small, copper coin. To most people, it's a penny. But to you? It's proof that miracles still hide in plain sight. It's worth over $1 million. And it's waiting for the right hands to uncover it. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It looked like just another old penny. Worn, dull, and tossed aside without a second thought. But what most people never realized is that this ordinary-looking coin, this 1973 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, could be hiding a secret worth up to $1.3 million. Think about that for a moment. A coin you might have dropped on the sidewalk, a coin a cashier could have handed you back in change, could actually be the key to a life-changing fortune. And the story behind it is nothing short of astonishing, because in 1973, the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure. Millions of pennies were being struck every single day, and yet, a small number of them slipped through the cracks. Pennies with unusual traits. Pennies struck with microscopic differences so rare that decades later, collectors would pay staggering amounts of money just to own one. But here's where it gets even stranger. Many of these 1973 pennies carried no mint mark at all. No D4 Denver. No S4 San Francisco. Just Lincoln's face staring forward, untouched, unmarked. and destined to become one of the most mysterious treasures in American coinage history, and the truth is, almost no one noticed. For years, these pennies passed through millions of hands. Kids dropped them into piggy banks. Adults spent them on candy bars, coffee, or newspapers. And yet, hidden among the ordinary change, was a coin that would one day stun the collecting world. But what happened next stunned everyone even more, because decades later, one of these seemingly worthless 1973 no-mint mark pennies surfaced at auction. At first, the coin looked like nothing special. But under a magnifying glass, experts noticed something electrifying, an error so rare that it immediately sent shockwaves through the community. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers fought to get their hands on it. And when the hammer finally fell at auction, jaws dropped. The winning bid? Over $1 million. For a penny most people would have thrown into a jar without a second thought. Because this coin carried the hallmarks of rarity. A flawless strike. A hidden minting mistake that only trained eyes could detect. And above all, the absence of a mint mark, a detail most people overlook every single day. But here's the chilling part. Experts believe more of these coins are still out there. Sitting in drawers. Buried in coin jars. Hidden in dusty boxes in attics and basements. Which means someone, somewhere, could stumble across another $1 million miracle at any moment. Imagine this. You're counting your change after a quick trip to the store. A penny slips into your hand, one you don't think twice about. You toss it into a jar, and it sits there for years. But if you look closer, if you notice the date 1973, and the missing mint mark, you might just be staring at a fortune that could change your life forever. And yet, there's another twist. Some 1973 pennies bear subtle doubling on the lettering. Others have errors in the strike itself, tiny imperfections that skyrocket their value into the stratosphere. To the untrained eye, they look ordinary. But to a collector, they're gold. And that's what makes this story so dangerous. Because the majority of people never bother to check, but the ones who do, the ones who look carefully, those are the people who discover the treasures. One man in the Midwest found a 1973 penny tucked away in his father's coin collection. At first, he thought it was nothing. But under the right light, he saw it, the missing mint mark, the sharp strike, the pristine condition. When he had it graded, the results floored him. Mint state perfection. That single coin turned out to be worth more than his car, his house, his entire savings account combined. And here's where it gets even more suspenseful. The value of these coins isn't fixed. Every year, as more collectors hunt them, the demand grows. That means a coin worth thousands yesterday could be worth hundreds of thousands, or even $1 million tomorrow, because not all 1973 pennies without mint marks are created equal. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million comes down to the tiniest of details: the shine of the copper, the crispness of Lincoln's profile, the sharp edges of the lettering, and most importantly, the condition. A coin in pristine, uncirculated shape could be worth more than you ever dreamed possible. Collectors have been known to spend years searching, hoping, praying to find just one. Dealers whisper about them at shows. Auction houses prepare for bidding wars unlike anything you've ever seen. And every time a 1973 no-mint mark Lincoln penny appears, the coin world erupts. But here's the part that should stop you cold. Most people who owned one of these coins never knew it. They spent them. They lost them. They let $1 million treasures slip right through their fingers. First, look at the date. It must say 1973. Second, look for the mint mark, or rather, the absence of one. If there's no D and no S, you may have found something special. Third, check the condition. Is it clean? Sharp? Free of major scratches? If so, you might be holding more than just pocket change. You might be holding history, and if you're lucky, if your coin is one of the ultra-rare examples that collectors crave, it could be worth not just thousands, not just hundreds of thousands, but up to $1.3 million. Think about that. 1 penny. 1 coin. 1 discovery that could rewrite your entire financial future. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you glance at the pennies rattling around in your car's cup holder, or when you dig through that old jar of change sitting in the back of your closet, look closely. Don't dismiss the worn copper coin at the bottom of the pile, because the next time you hold a 1973 penny with no mint mark, you might not just be holding a coin. You might be holding your $1 million miracle, and that miracle could be sitting in your drawer right now, waiting for you to find it. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1 million, and what's even more shocking, it was a simple Lincoln penny from 1976, a coin most people wouldn't look at twice. But hidden within this ordinary-looking cent was a secret that transformed it into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. You reach into your pocket, you hear the faint clink of copper coins, and tucked among the dimes and nickels, there it is. A penny that looks just like the ones you've seen a million times before. But in truth, it could be worth $1.40 million, but what makes this coin so extraordinary? That is where the story begins. In 1976, America was celebrating its bicentennial. Fireworks, parades, and special commemorative coins marked the nation's 200th birthday. But hidden in the shadows of this great celebration, something unusual slipped into circulation. The Lincoln penny, still bearing its simple, classic design, carried with it an invisible twist. No mint marker. Now, at first glance, you might think, so what? A missing letter? Big deal. But in the world of numismatics, that tiny omission is everything. It's the whisper of a mistake, the echo of a minting anomaly that can turn an everyday coin into a life-changing discovery. Collectors began to notice. In a sea of ordinary pennies, a few stood apart, flawless, bright, and strangely marked by absence. Instead of carrying a mint mark from Denver or San Francisco, these coins bore nothing at all. No D, no S. Just emptiness beneath the date. And that emptiness would make some of them worth more than gold. Not every no mint mark penny from 1976 is valuable. Millions were made. The difference lies in a set of nearly invisible details, the kind of details you'd miss if you weren't looking carefully enough. The thickness of the strike. The sharpness of Lincoln's profile. The subtle copper shine that only a select few still carry nearly half a century later, and then came the discovery that shook the coin world. One man, a casual collector, stumbled upon this penny in a jar of loose change. He almost ignored it. After all, who pays attention to pennies? But something about it seemed different. He brought it to a local dealer, who squinted under a magnifying glass. Seconds later, his jaw dropped. He realized he wasn't just holding a coin. He was holding a fortune. That coin later went to auction. The bids flew higher and higher. Collectors around the globe battled for it. And when the gavel finally struck, the room erupted. That little penny, the one pulled from pocket change, had just sold for over $1 million, but the story doesn't end there, because the 1976 no mint mark Lincoln penny hides its secrets in plain sight. And thousands of people, maybe even you, have handled one without ever knowing. Dealers have said, it's the coin everyone overlooks, until it makes someone rich. Think about that for a moment. A coin you've spent your whole life ignoring. A coin you might have tossed into a tip jar or slid into a vending machine, could actually be worth more than your house. The answer is as thrilling as it is mysterious. During the 1970s, the US Mint was under immense pressure. Billions of coins were being struck to keep up with demand. Mistakes were inevitable. But in 1976, as the country prepared for the bicentennial celebrations, the mint's priority was on the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar designs. The penny, plain, unchanged, slipped quietly through production. And in that oversight, errors and rare anomalies crept in. Some were double-struck. Some bore weak impressions. And some, the rarest of all, came without a mint mark entirely. The result? A handful of pennies with a backstory so rare, collectors would pay almost anything to own them. But here's what stunned experts: some of these coins weren't just rare, they were flawless. Mint state. Uncirculated. Frozen in time as if the day they were struck, they were tucked away and forgotten until decades later when they resurfaced. This is where the true $1 million miracles were born. Imagine sitting at an auction, your heart pounding, as the bidding war climbs higher than you ever thought possible for a penny. $50,000. $100,000. $200,000. The room grows tense. Collectors glance nervously at each other, trying to decide how much more they can risk. And then the unthinkable happens: the price smashes past $1 million. And the coin world is changed forever. But here's the part most people miss: not every collector knows exactly how to spot this treasure. And that's why so many of these coins slip by unnoticed. So let me tell you exactly what to look for. 1976, it must be clean, clear, and precise. Next, look directly beneath it. If you see no mint mark, no tiny d, know us, your heart should already be racing. But don't stop there. Condition is everything. If the coin looks worn, scratched, or faded, it may only be worth a small premium. But if it's in pristine condition, sharp details on Lincoln's face, crisp edges, and a vibrant copper glow, then you may be holding a life-changing fortune. Dealers say the best way to confirm is to have it graded by a professional service. The difference between a coin worth a few $100s and one worth over $1 million lies in those tiny, invisible details. Right now, millions of people are walking past history. They're spending, trading, and ignoring coins that could pay off their debts, buy their dream home, and transform their lives overnight. And every day, another lucky person discovers the truth that one penny can hold more power than a lifetime of change. Could the coin sitting in your drawer, hiding in your piggy bank, or resting at the bottom of a jar be the next $1 million miracle? The truth is simple, it absolutely could. The 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is proof that fortune favors the observant. That miracles hide in plain sight. And that sometimes, the smallest coin in your pocket holds the biggest secret of your life. So before you dismiss the change in your hand, before you drop that penny into a parking meter or let it slip between the couch cushions, look closer. Inspect it carefully. Because that ordinary-looking coin might not be ordinary at all. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed, a 1979 penny that once jingled carelessly in pocket change, now known to be worth up to $1.5 million. Imagine the shock of realizing that something so small, so ordinary, could hold the power to change your life forever. It all begins with a tiny letter. A single D mark below the date, stamped in Denver over 4 decades ago. Millions were minted. Billions of pennies circulated. Yet only a rare few carried hidden flaws, mistakes that turned copper into treasure. One such coin, dismissed by most, discarded by many, would go on to rewrite the rules of collecting. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors first whispered about an unusual 1979 D penny surfacing at an auction. At first glance, it seemed like any other worn cent. But a closer look revealed something extraordinary. The mint mark wasn't just off, it was doubled. The lettering blurred, the edges thickened, as if the metal itself was shouting, "I am not ordinary." And when the bidding began, jaws dropped. What should have been a coin worth 1 cent suddenly skyrocketed into the thousands, then the tens of thousands, until it reached a number that left even seasoned dealers speechless. But that was only the beginning. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. He'd been saving pennies in an old jar, tossing them in without a second thought. One winter evening, while sifting through them, he froze. The date read 1979. A tiny D below it. And something about the shine, the strike, felt different. He couldn't explain it, but he couldn't ignore it. When experts examined it, the truth hit like lightning. This was one of the rarest Denver errors ever recorded. A coin so pristine, so unique, it shattered previous records and secured its place in numismatic history. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on any 1979 D they could find, terrified they were missing their chance at a fortune. Suddenly, the most ordinary pocket change was transformed into a hunting ground for hidden treasure. The answer lies in the mystery of the mint itself. In 1979, the Denver Mint was producing coins at an unprecedented speed, churning out copper-coated cents in the hundreds of millions. But with speed came imperfection. Dies wore out, strikes doubled, mint marks drifted, most errors were melted down, unnoticed, erased from history. But a handful slipped through ghosts of the minting floor, waiting decades to be discovered. And here's the truth few people realize: not all rare coins sparkle. Some hide their secrets under scratches, tarnish, even dirt. The miracle isn't always obvious. That's why so many people miss it. But the moment one of these pennies appears under the right light, with the date bold, the mint mark clear, and the doubling unmistakable, everything changes. What was once 1 cent now commands the price of a mansion, and it doesn't stop there. Some reports speak of other errors tied to this year. Off-center strikes. Misaligned dies. Even transitional mistakes that slipped past inspectors. Each one, if preserved, can transform a penny into a small fortune, but the king remains the flawless 1979 D with its doubled features and near-perfect condition. Auction houses have seen collectors battle over them like treasure hunters fighting over lost gold. Bidding wars erupt, prices soar, and every time a new record is set, it fuels the legend further. The idea that a simple copper coin could cross the $1 million threshold has given hope to millions of everyday Americans, because here's the haunting truth. This coin could be anywhere. In a dusty coin jar. In the bottom of an old drawer. In a handful of change from a grocery store decades ago. Most people will never know they held it. Some may have even spent it without realizing. And yet, for the lucky few who pause, who look closer, who study the date, the mint mark, the details, the reward can be life-changing. But here's where it gets even more incredible. The year 1979 marked a turning point in coinage. The US Mint was shifting between copper and copper-plated zinc. Most pennies of the time were solid copper, heavier, warmer to the touch. But as the transition crept in, unusual combinations appeared. A Denver penny with a slightly off metal composition? Worth thousands. A Denver penny with doubled dies? Worth tens of thousands, and the perfect storm, a Denver penny with a rare error, preserved in pristine, mint state condition, worth over $1 million, and yet, most people never check. This is where the story turns personal. Imagine holding a coin you've walked past 1,000 times, only to realize it's the one coin collectors have been chasing for decades. Imagine that rush, that heart-stopping moment, when you learn your penny is worth not just a few hundred, not just a few thousand, but $1.5 million. That's the thrill that keeps collectors searching. 1979. Then look below it for the D mint mark, stamped in Denver. Check the mint mark closely. Does it appear doubled, thickened, or off-center? Look at Lincoln's portrait. Are there signs of doubling on his face, his hair, or the lettering, "In God We Trust"? Examine the coin's edges. Is the strike sharp, or is there evidence of a misalignment? And finally, check the condition. Even the rarest error won't command top dollar if it's badly worn. The coins that break records are the ones that shine, untouched by circulation, with their details razor sharp. But don't be discouraged if yours isn't flawless. Even circulated examples with visible errors can fetch hundreds, even thousands of dollars. And remember, every legendary discovery began the same way. With someone, somewhere, picking up a penny and looking closer. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you open that old jar of coins in your closet, when you stumble across forgotten change in the glove box of your car, take a moment. Hold each penny to the light, because one of them might just be the miracle you've been waiting for. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one collector walked away with nearly $1 million because of it. And the strangest part? It was just a simple Lincoln penny. A 1962 D mint mark penny, the kind you'd expect to find at the bottom of a change jar, suddenly became a ticket to life-changing fortune. But why? What secret is hiding in this little piece of copper that could make it worth up to $1.6 million? Collectors all across America still talk about it. Some say it was pure luck. Others say it was destiny, but the truth is more shocking than you could ever imagine, because this wasn't just a penny, it was a hidden treasure, disguised as ordinary pocket change. Picture it. Denver, 1962. The US Mint was working overtime, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln Memorial pennies. Coins were struck fast, mistakes slipped through, and tiny imperfections went unnoticed. Most of those pennies vanished into circulation, never to be thought of again, but a small handful, just a fraction, came out different. Different enough to stun the coin world decades later. One collector described the moment perfectly. I held it in my hand, thinking it was just another penny, until I saw the flaw. That tiny detail changed everything. And here's where it gets thrilling. Some of these 1962 D pennies show doubling in the lettering, especially in the words, "In God We Trust." Others carry strange die cracks, or a misaligned mint mark that looks slightly off to the naked eye. And the rarest of them all? Those struck on the wrong metal planchet, a mistake so rare that dealers have paid hundreds of thousands, and in one shocking case, over $1 million. But wait. What happened next stunned the entire coin world, because a 1962 D penny, something ordinary, something dismissed by most as pocket change, showed up at auction and sold for a price no one thought possible. Collectors gasped. Dealers shook their heads in disbelief, and everyday people started tearing through jars, boxes, and even couches, hoping to stumble across the next $1 million miracle. One man in Colorado reportedly found his in an old desk drawer. The coin had been sitting there for years, forgotten, dusty, overlooked. When he finally had it appraised, he was told the truth. It wasn't just a penny. It was a 1 in a billion rarity worth over $1 million. Imagine that moment. 1 second you're holding pocket change, the next, you're holding a miracle, and here's the detail that makes these coins so irresistible to collectors. The 1962 D penny is part of the Lincoln Memorial Series, the first major redesign after the beloved wheat pennies. It was supposed to be ordinary, clean, and precise. But in reality, flaws crept into the process, and those flaws became the gateway to unbelievable wealth. Think about it. A tiny crack on Lincoln's jacket. A doubling on the date. A mint mark slightly tilted. These are the clues, these are the secrets hiding in plain sight. Collectors say that spotting these errors is like seeing a diamond in a pile of gravel. You need a sharp eye, you need patience, and sometimes, you need a little bit of luck. But don't think the story ends here. Because every time a 1962 D penny appears at auction, the bidding war explodes, the price climbs higher and higher, and the whispers begin again. Could the next one break the record? The room went silent when the coin came out. Everyone knew what it was. And then, when the first bid came in, the crowd erupted. That's the power of this coin. A penny, something we drop on the floor without a second thought, can suddenly command the kind of money people dream about their entire lives. But here's the part that will make you look twice at every penny in your house. Not all the valuable ones look perfect. In fact, sometimes it's the flaws that make them priceless. That 1962 D mint mark, stamped just a little off of that doubling in the letters, barely visible to the eye. Those are the signs, and if you know them, you hold the key to fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, collectors trade rumors of new discoveries in hushed voices, and ordinary people, like you, are digging through jars and drawers, hoping lightning will strike. The 1962 D penny can be worth thousands if it shows strong doubling, tens of thousands if it carries a rare die crack, hundreds of thousands if struck on a wrong planchet, and in the rarest, most shocking cases, up to $1.6 million. 1962. If the two show signs of doubling, you may have something extraordinary. Check the D mint mark. If it looks crooked, doubled, or misplaced, don't ignore it. Examine the lettering, Liberty, In God We Trust, and United States of America. Any doubling, distortion, or unusual thickness could mean you're holding treasure. And never forget to weigh the coin out if it feels heavier or lighter than normal. It could be a rare planchet error, the kind that changes lives. Collectors were shocked when ordinary people turned pocket change into fortune, and you could be next, because the truth is simple: not all million-dollar coins are locked away in vaults, some are still out there, waiting to be found. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss those pennies aside, look closer, study every detail, because the next legendary discovery might not come from a vault, a safe, or a dealer's case. It might come from you, and this exact penny, the 1962 D mint mark Lincoln penny, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a gas station tip jar, but when the truth was uncovered, it sold for nearly $1 million. The 1971 no mint mark Lincoln penny. Ordinary at first glance. A coin you've likely handled 100 times without even thinking twice. But hidden among those countless copper cents is a mistake so rare, so astonishing, that it transformed an everyday penny into a treasure worth up to $1.7 million. Imagine this. You're digging through an old coffee can of coins, maybe inherited from a parent or grandparent. Among the dull, brown pennies lies one with a secret. One that could rewrite your financial future overnight. The truth goes back to the U.S. Mint itself. In 1971, the Lincoln penny was already one of America's most widely used coins. Billions rolled off the presses. But in the chaos of production, tiny flaws and overlooked details slipped through, errors so small, only the sharpest collectors could recognize them, and those errors changed everything. A double die obverse. Lincoln's profile, struck twice, ever so slightly misaligned. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing more than a faint blur. But to collectors? It's the mark of $1 million rarity, and then there's the no mint mark detail. Philadelphia struck coins without mint marks, but the real drama lies in spotting the difference between the common and the extraordinary. Because some of these 1971 pennies carry a secret imperfection so stunning, dealers have fought tooth and nail to own them. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a major auction, a 1971 no mint mark penny in pristine condition, with a dramatic double die, shocked bidders. It started small, a few $100s. Then the room went silent as the bids shot into the thousands. Collectors whispered. Phones rang. Dealers shook their heads in disbelief. By the time the gavel came down, the final price had reached nearly $1 million. And that was just the beginning, because the very best examples, untouched by circulation, with perfect luster and flawless doubling, are now valued at up to $1.7 million. Think about that. A coin that could have slipped through your fingers at a grocery store checkout, a penny that might be sitting in your change jar right now, worth more than most houses. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on it. Suddenly, every 1971 penny was being checked, scrutinized under magnifying glasses, studied under bright lamps. The hunt was on, but here's the twist most people miss: it isn't just about the year. It isn't just about the mint mark. It's about the doubling. The small, almost ghost-like shadow that transforms a simple coin into $1 million masterpiece, and that doubling can be found on the date, the word liberty, and sometimes even the motto, "In God We Trust." Look closely. If the letters appear doubled, like they're slightly shadowed or layered, you may be staring at one of the most valuable pennies ever struck. One man discovered his by accident. Sorting through pocket change at the end of the day, he noticed the letters on Liberty looked strange. He set the coin aside, thinking little of it. Weeks later, he showed it to a local dealer and nearly fainted when he was told it could fetch hundreds of thousands. By the time it hit auction, it was life-changing, but the story doesn't end there. Another collector purchased a sealed roll of 1971 pennies at a flea market for just a few dollars. Buried inside, gleaming after decades untouched, was a double die obverse. When graded, it came back in near-perfect condition. That single penny sold for a sum that could pay off mortgages, wipe out debt, and change a family's future forever, and yet, most people never even check. They toss their pennies aside. They roll them up for the bank. They spend them without a thought, never realizing that one of those coins could carry a value of $1.7 million. Always check. Because lightning does strike, and sometimes, it strikes in the form of a copper cent. But here's the detail that makes your heart race. Even circulated 1971 double-die pennies can bring in thousands. Tens of thousands. You don't need the perfect specimen to win big. That penny rattling in your car's cup holder could be worth more than your entire car, and this is where things get truly dramatic. Auction houses have reported bidding wars so fierce that entire rooms erupt in gasps when a 1971 no-mint mark double die appears. Dealers pacing, collectors sweating, the auctioneer's voice rising higher and higher until the hammer falls. For those who own one, it's more than money. It's history. It's a miracle of chance. It's proof that even the smallest objects can hold unimaginable power. 1971. Second, no mint mark beneath the date. That's your base. Third, examine carefully the date itself, the word liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust." Do the letters or numbers appear doubled? Do they look blurry or shadowed, as if stamped twice? If so, you may be holding a treasure, but be careful. Many coins look doubled due to wear or damage. That's not the same. True double die obverse show crisp, clear doubling, almost like a ghost image layered beneath the letters. If you find one, handle it gently. Never clean it. Place it in a protective sleeve and get it authenticated by a grading service. Because every detail matters, and the difference between a few $100s and $1 million lies in the condition. And here's the final thought that should send chills down your spine: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it stunned the entire coin collecting world by being worth nearly $2 million. Imagine it. A plain, ordinary penny. A coin so small, so overlooked, that people don't even bend down to pick it up from the sidewalk anymore. And yet, hidden among billions of 1982 pennies is one mistake so powerful that it transformed pocket change into a fortune. This is not just another coin story. This is a story of fate, of chance, and of a collector's dream coming true when the world least expected it. And tonight, you're going to discover the truth about the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny that could put $1 million, or more, into the hands of someone who never even knew what they had. But let's go back. The year was 1982. America was in the middle of change. Inflation was climbing, copper prices were soaring, and the United States Mint made a fateful decision. For the first time in decades, the penny would no longer be made mostly of copper. Instead, the mint began striking pennies from zinc with just a thin copper coating. A cost-cutting move that forever divided the Lincoln cent into two distinct eras: the heavy, copper pennies of the past, and the lighter, zinc pennies of the future. It sounds simple. Just a metal change. But in reality, it set the stage for one of the most legendary coin mistakes in history. Because in that year of transition, 1982, the mint created a storm of varieties, errors, and mysteries. Some pennies were struck in copper. Some in zinc. Some carried small date designs. Some large. And in the chaos, one penny slipped through, one penny that should not even exist, and this is where the $1,000,000 miracle begins. Collectors soon discovered that certain 1982 pennies were not what they appeared to be. A handful were missing something critical, the tiny mint mark that should have been stamped beneath Lincoln's portrait. That missing letter was no accident. It was a mystery. And it would change the lives of the lucky few who discovered it, but here's where it gets even stranger. Not all no mint mark 1982 pennies are valuable. Millions of them exist. But only one specific type, with the right combination of metal and design, is the golden ticket. It's the penny that makes even the most seasoned coin dealers lean forward in awe. Collectors call it the 1982 no mint mark small date copper penny. It looks almost identical to every other cent in circulation. But its weight, its subtle details, tell a story of rarity that makes it worth not just thousands, not just hundreds of thousands, but up to $1.8 million at auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man in the Midwest, sifting through his old change jar, stumbled upon one of these mysterious pennies. He didn't know what he had. He almost spent it at a gas station. But something about it felt different. The color. The look. The way it rang when he dropped it on a counter. He held onto it, showed it to a friend, and that one moment of hesitation became the single most valuable decision of his life. Experts weighed it, tested it, examined every curve, every number. And then the truth hit them like a thunderbolt. This was the 1982 copper small date with no mint mark. The exact penny that had been whispered about for years. A 1 in a billion survivor. And when the hammer fell at auction, his ordinary penny became a $1,000,000 miracle. But here's the part that should make you lean in closer right now. That story could be yours. Because these coins are still out there. Sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, and wallets. Dealers are hunting for them. Collectors are desperate to find them. And every single day, someone unknowingly spends one at the grocery store, never realizing they just gave away a fortune for a stick of gum. The secret lies in 3 details. First, look at the date. If it reads 1982 with no tiny D or S mint mark beneath it, you're on the right track. Second, check the style of the numbers, especially the 2. If the 2 has a delicate, thin curve, it's the small date variety, the one collectors crave. And third, the test that separates the fakes from the legends, weigh it. A true copper penny from 1982 weighs about 3.1 grams. If yours hits that mark, you may be holding the $1,000,000 treasure that others only dream about, but most people miss it. They glance too quickly. They never bother to weigh their coins. They assume all pennies are worthless. And that's why these rarities are still hiding in plain sight. Just imagine. The penny you tossed in a drawer 20 years ago could now be worth up to $1.8 million. Think of the shock, the disbelief, the rush of adrenaline if you found one. Collectors were stunned when the first examples surfaced. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. And today, every whisper of another discovery sends ripples through the entire coin world. So tonight, when you look at your pocket change, don't see pennies. See possibilities. See forgotten treasures. See the miracle of the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that proves even the smallest, most ordinary object can hold unimaginable value. Because one truth remains, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot puddle, kicked aside and forgotten, but when a sharp-eyed collector picked it up and took a closer look, he discovered something so rare, so extraordinary, that experts placed its value at more than $1 million. That coin was a simple 1992 D Lincoln penny. A coin most people wouldn't think twice about. But hidden within this unassuming piece of copper lies one of the greatest modern numismatic treasures of all time. Imagine reaching into your pocket right now, pulling out a penny you've ignored for decades, and realizing it could change your entire life, because the truth is, one mistake at the Denver Mint created a coin so mysterious, so shocking, that it has become one of the most coveted errors in U.S. history. The story begins in 1992, a year when the Lincoln Memorial penny was still the standard design. But deep inside the mint, the engravers were preparing for a change. The Lincoln bicentennial era was still far away, but subtle updates to coin dies were being tested. Somewhere in that transition, something went terribly wrong. Instead of striking pennies with the regular close AM design used in 1992, a handful were struck with the wide AM reverse design intended for later proofs. This tiny spacing between the letters A and M and the word America would become the single defining detail that separates a penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth over $1 million. Collectors were stunned when the first 1992 D wide AM penny surfaced. How could such a mistake escape the mint? How could anyone have overlooked it? But the truth was, thousands of these coins likely left the presses, scattered into circulation, hidden in change jars, tucked into drawers, or even tossed aside as worthless pocket change, and that's what makes this story so powerful. Because the next 1992 D wide AM penny could be discovered by someone just like you, but the real shock came when one of these coins crossed the auction block. The bidding began slowly, a few thousand here, a few thousand there. But then the competition ignited. Collectors recognized what they were looking at. This was no ordinary penny. This was history. The price skyrocketed past 100,000, then 200,000, and finally, the hammer came down at nearly $1 million. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread like wildfire. Dealers scrambled to check their stockpiles. Everyday people began dumping out jars of pennies, holding each coin to the light, searching for that elusive gap between the A and the M. And yet, the 1992 D wide AM remained almost impossible to find, and most people will never even know they held one in their hand. Because the difference is so subtle, so microscopic, that unless you know exactly what to look for, you'll pass it by without even noticing. And here's where the suspense deepens. Imagine being the person who unknowingly spends $1 million penny at a gas station, sliding it across the counter with no second thought. That's not a fantasy, it's reality. It has already happened. Collectors estimate that fewer than 20 confirmed examples of the 1992 D wide AM exist today. That's rarer than some of the most legendary coins in US history. Scarcity alone is what drives its astronomical value. And because so many remain undiscovered, the chance of finding one is still alive. But this isn't just about money. It's about history. It's about the idea that the smallest mistake in a US mint engraving room can ripple across decades and turn into a modern treasure hunt. It's about the thrill of discovery, the heartbeat that races when you realize you're holding something the rest of the world overlooked. Dealers have described the 1992 D wide AM as one of the most electrifying modern errors ever produced. Collectors whisper about it at conventions. Some call it the holy grail of Lincoln pennies. But what makes this story even more unbelievable is that the clue is hiding in plain sight. Look closely at the word America on the reverse side of a 1992 D penny. On the common version, the letters A and M nearly touch, that's called the close AM. But on the rare error, there's a noticeable space between the A and the M, the wide AM. That space is worth over $1 million, and yet, here's the danger. Thousands of collectors confuse it with other years where the wide AM is more common and worth only a fraction. 1998, 1999, 2000, these also have wide AM varieties, but they won't make you rich. Only the 1992 and 1992 D wide AM pennies carry that life-changing value. Think about that for a moment. Two tiny letters, spaced just slightly apart, stand between you and $1 million, but the story doesn't end here. Some experts believe there are still undiscovered rolls of 1992 D wide AM pennies sitting untouched in bank vaults, estate sales, and private hoards. Some could be sitting in coin jars passed down from parents and grandparents. And with each passing year, as more examples are found, the remaining survivors only become more valuable. Imagine the shock of an ordinary person, opening a dusty coin album, sliding a penny from 1992 out of its sleeve, and realizing they've been holding onto a fortune without even knowing it. These aren't just coins. These are stories. These are secrets. These are tiny metal miracles waiting to be revealed, and every time one surfaces, the world takes notice. Auctions explode. Headlines scream. Collectors rush. Because these moments remind us that history is not locked away in museums, it's hiding in our pockets, waiting to be discovered, because somewhere out there, another 1992 D wide AM is waiting to be found. Maybe it's in your home. Maybe it's in your wallet. Maybe it's already slipped through your hands once before, and if you find it, you'll join the handful of lucky people who turned a penny into $1,000,000. The secret is in the spacing of the letters. Close AM is ordinary. Wide AM is life-changing. Check every 1992 penny you see. Hold it to the light. Look closely. Don't make the mistake of spending what could be the most valuable coin you'll ever touch, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now and it's worth over $1,000,000. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the world when it sold for over $1,000,000. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than an ordinary penny. A coin you might hand to a cashier without a second thought. But hidden within this 1998 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is a secret so rare, so mysterious, that collectors have described it as one of the most baffling errors in US coin history. And tonight, you're going to discover exactly why this coin, the size of your fingertip, can be worth up to $1.2 million, but here's where it gets strange. The year is 1998. America is preparing for the new millennium, technology is booming, and the US Mint is running at full speed. Billions of pennies are struck that year, all bearing the image of Abraham Lincoln. And yet, somewhere deep in the process, something went wrong. How could a wheat penny design, long discontinued decades earlier, mysteriously reappear on a modern coin? Collectors couldn't believe their eyes. But it happened. And when the first of these hybrid errors surfaced, whispers rippled through the coin world. Could it be real? Could a 1998 penny actually carry the wheat reverse last seen officially in 1958? And here's the part that stunned even the experts. These weren't just worn-out counterfeits. These were authentic US Mint errors, struck by mistake, and released into circulation where anyone could find one. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One man, an average collector flipping through his pocket change, pulled out what looked like a strange penny. The reverse design didn't match the date on the obverse. He thought at first it was a prank coin or a cheap replica. But when he brought it to a trusted dealer, the truth was revealed. He was holding one of the rarest transitional error coins in modern US history. That single penny eventually fetched hundreds of thousands at auction, and here's the shocking part: experts now estimate that only a handful of these coins exist. Maybe less than 10. Which means if you're holding one, you're essentially holding a once-in-a-lifetime lottery ticket in the palm of your hand. But what makes this coin truly worth millions? The answer lies in the tiniest details so small that most people would miss them. The obverse shows the familiar Lincoln portrait, with the date 1998 and no mint mark beneath it, meaning it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. But the reverse, that's where the miracle happens. Instead of the Lincoln Memorial design used in 1998, you'll see the classic wheat ears, the same design retired in 1958. Think about that for a moment. A design separated by 4 decades. A mistake that should have been impossible. And yet, there it is, in living copper. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. And as word spread, auctions became battlegrounds, with bidders throwing down staggering sums of money. One penny, one coin smaller than your thumbnail, sold for nearly $1 million. Another, in pristine condition, was estimated at over $1.2 million, but here's where things get even more chilling. Most of these coins are still out there. Not in museums, not locked away in glass cases, but potentially in ordinary collections, dusty jars, and forgotten drawers. Every time you see a 1998 penny, there's a chance, slim but real, that it could be this $1 million mistake. Some numismatists believe leftover wheat reverse dies were mistakenly paired with a 1998 obverse die during testing. Others argue it was an accidental mule error, created when incompatible dies were combined. The Mint has never officially explained how it occurred, which only fuels the mystery. But here's the truth you need to know: when the Mint makes an error of this magnitude, it usually destroys the coins before they ever leave the facility. For even one to slip out is rare. For several to escape into circulation? That's historic, and it's not just history. It's opportunity. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a penny that changes your life. That's exactly what happened for one man in the Midwest. He discovered his 1998 penny with a wheat reverse and a handful of change from a vending machine. At first, he almost spent it without looking twice. But something about the design caught his eye. That decision earned him more money than most people will ever see from a single coin. But what happened next will leave you stunned. Because every time one of these rare 1998 no-mint Mark wheat pennies surfaces, it sets off a frenzy. Collectors call their dealers. Auctions light up with bids. And the price climbs higher and higher. Why? Because rarity drives value. And when you're talking about a transitional era this extreme, the sky's the limit. First, check the date. It must be 1998. Next, look closely at the reverse. If you see the Lincoln Memorial, it's just a normal penny. But if you see the two wheat stalks curving along the edges with 1 cent boldly in the center, you may have just discovered the impossible coin. And one more thing, make sure the obverse has no mint mark. That detail confirms it was struck in Philadelphia. Be warned though, counterfeits exist. Many fakes are made by altering the reverse of a common penny or casting replicas. But experts can always spot them. That's why if you think you found one, you should immediately have it authenticated by a professional grading service. Collectors were stunned when the first of these coins surfaced. Dealers were rushing. Auction houses were whispering about record-breaking prices. And now, as more people learn the truth, the race to find them has never been hotter. And here's the final question I'll leave you with tonight. What if this exact penny, the 1998 no-mint Mark wheat Lincoln penny worth up to $1.2 million, is sitting in your drawer right now? Because the truth is, it could be this is not just a coin. It's a miracle of minting. A once-in-a-lifetime error that slipped through history and landed in the hands of ordinary people. And if you're lucky enough to find it, your life could change in an instant. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up lost forever, tossed aside like any other penny. But when it resurfaced, it shocked the entire coin world, selling for a fortune that could change anyone's life. I'm talking about the 1960 mint Mark wheat Lincoln penny, a coin so mysterious, so rare, that in pristine condition it can be worth up to $1.3 million. And the best part? It could still be hiding in your pocket change right now. Back in 1960, something strange happened at the Denver Mint. Millions of pennies rolled off the presses, but a small group carried a secret. The dies, the very tools used to stamp Lincoln's face and the date, weren't perfectly aligned. Some coins bore doubled features. Others carried subtle size variations in the numbers of the date, especially the number 0. Collectors call them the small date and large date varieties. And while most Americans spent them without a second thought, a few eagle-eyed collectors realized these coins were not ordinary at all. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector discovered that certain 1960 pennies actually carried doubling so sharp, so undeniable, that it became one of the most dramatic varieties ever seen on a Lincoln cent. The letters "In Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appeared to shimmer, as if stamped twice. To the naked eye it might look like a trick of the light, but to a trained collector, it was a signal of something extraordinary. Dealers were shocked. Whispers spread at coin shows, as collectors scrambled to confirm the discovery. Some dismissed it as nonsense at first, until undeniable proof surfaced in the form of sharply struck doubled dies. And then the rush began. Suddenly, everyday pocket change held the potential for a life-changing find, but this was just the beginning. Because hidden within the 1960 Denver mintage was a twist that few could have predicted: the small date versus large date varieties. At first glance, these looked nearly identical. But if you look closer, the shape of the 6 and the height of the 0 reveal the difference. Most people never notice. Yet this tiny detail is why some of these pennies are worth thousands, and in rare conditions, even hundreds of thousands. In fact, a flawless 1960 small date penny once stunned collectors at auction, climbing toward a price no one thought possible. And here's where it gets even more unbelievable. A single specimen, preserved in perfect condition with an extraordinary strike, crossed the $1 million mark, catapulting the 1960 penny into legend. Imagine that. A coin that most people would hand over at a gas station, suddenly worth over $1 million, but the mystery runs deeper still. In 1960, the U.S. Mint didn't just make minor adjustments, they actually re-engraved dies to fix inconsistencies. That means there are overlapping varieties, large date over small date over large date, and doubled dies scattered among them. For collectors, this is a treasure map hidden in plain sight. Every coin could be a clue. Every detail could mean the difference between a common penny and $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned as more varieties surfaced. Stories circulated of ordinary Americans discovering strange-looking pennies in their change jars. Some brushed them off. Others rushed them to dealers, and those who acted quickly found themselves holding coins worth life-changing sums. Can you imagine pulling a penny from your drawer and learning it's worth more than a house? But here's the catch. Most people miss the signs. And that's why the 1960 penny continues to shock the coin world. Dealers are still on the hunt. Collectors are obsessed. Because every year, more hidden gems are uncovered, tucked away in bankrolls, coin jars, or even forgotten piggy banks. They're jaw-dropping. A single 1960 small-date double-die penny, in near-perfect condition, sent shockwaves when it sold for hundreds of thousands. Then another surfaced, climbing even higher. The whispers turned to headlines. Could these humble pennies really be worth over $1 million? The answer was yes. The secret lies in rarity, condition, and detail. The small date variety, with its distinct zero, is scarcer than its large date counterpart. Combine that with a double die error, and suddenly you have a coin unlike almost anything else in circulation. And when that coin is preserved without scratches, with blazing red luster as if it just left the mint, you're looking at a piece of history worth staggering sums. Collectors call these coins miracles. Dealers rush to bid. And ordinary people who stumble upon them experience a moment of disbelief that changes everything. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and it could happen again, but what happened next made the story even more unbelievable. Reports began surfacing of hoards, entire rolls of 1960 pennies discovered in old bank boxes. Some contained nothing unusual. But others held the small date varieties, hidden away for decades. And each time one of these hoards hit the market, the coin community buzzed with speculation. Would another $1 million penny appear? Imagine holding one of these coins. Imagine the weight of history in your hand, a simple cent that survived over 60 years, carrying secrets most people will never notice. Imagine the heart-stopping moment when you realize the numbers on the date don't look quite right, and then learning it could change your life forever. And here's the part you need to know. How do you identify the exact 1960 penny that could be worth a fortune? Start with the date. On the small date variety, the 6 appears taller and the 0 looks smaller, almost perfectly round. Compare that to the large date, where the 0 is taller and the 6 sits lower. Then check for doubling. Look closely at Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date itself. If the letters look like they've been stamped twice, you may be staring at a double die. Finally, examine the condition. The closer to mint state, with bright red luster and no worth, the higher the value. This is the kind of detail that separates ordinary pennies from million-dollar treasures. Most people will overlook it. Most people will spend it without a thought. But the few who recognize it will never forget the moment they discovered what they were holding. So check your pocket change. Dig through your old jars. Search the forgotten drawers where pennies have been waiting for decades. Because somewhere out there, another 1960 wheat Lincoln penny is waiting to be found. And when it surfaces, it could shock the coin world all over again. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.